When Nothing launched the Nothing Phone 1, it was a really interesting and hype generating device. It also has an interesting design which did differ from what was available in the market, and there was a lot of play with the transparency, which was not really transparency, but the glyph lights, which also a lot of people thought were a gimmick. The phone did revolutionize the industry, at least for that 1 year, and it showed off how phones can be made in the newer era of technology. But the Nothing Phone 2 fell short of expectations, and I think the smartest decision the company has made is to launch the Nothing Phone 2A. Now, this phone is a more affordable phone priced in at 23,999, and using some offers you'll be able to get it for under 20,000. So 19,999 for this device is a smart move, and this phone is completely made in India. And so for that price, how good is this device and what all does it feature? Let's quickly find out. So inside the box, you'll get the phone, some documentation, and a cable. You don't get a case, which you would typically inside the box of a phone, and that's a little bit of a letdown. But the fact that this phone has a completely different material means that cases may not be essential. So the back is made out of polycarbonate, and instead of glass, they're using this material. And polycarbonate is a material that has been famously used in really strong phones. The Nokia 5310, for example, was made out of polycarbonate. And this one is a clear polycarbonate, is available in two colors in the typical Nothing fashion, the black and the white. With the same transparent design, the camera layout has been moved to the center, so it gives a more sort of animated character look. People have been calling it a minion face. You do get the transparent design and you still get the glyph lights, but they are much lesser and restricted to the top part of the device. And you're also missing out on wireless charging, which you don't really expect in the price bracket that this phone has been launched at. The sides are also matte finish. They look really good, especially on this black color. And if you do get the white color, you do get contrasting keys, which I guess is nice. The phone itself is IP54, so you do get some basic water and dust resistance. And the device also weighs in at 190 grams and being really slim. And the fact that it has curved edges makes it really comfortable. A different opinion here would be that the material used is not as robust as you would find in premium devices. And this is not intended to be a premium device. This is Nothing's way of getting into a market which is really aggressive in India. And I think it's a really good device for that. Not having glass can have its pros, the fact that it won't break easily, but the fact that this is polycarbonate, it might scratch easily, and that will be a problem for a lot of people. So getting a third-party case would be good. Nothing is not selling any cases, and every time I speak to them about cases, it seems like it's not a priority for them, and I feel that that's a missed opportunity. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Now let's talk about the display. It's a 6.7-inch flexible AMOLED display with 120 Hz of refresh rate. You have 1300 nits of peak brightness and 1100 nits of outdoor brightness, and it also has a full HD plus resolution. Now, granted, it's not a high resolution display, but it's a pretty nice looking OLED panel. It has good colors, good contrast, and good visibility. And while 1300 nits is not the brightest screen that you can get, it's a pretty decent screen for this price bracket, and it's actually really bright and easily readable indoors as well as out. The fact that it retains 1100 nits outdoors means that it's crossing the 1000 nits threshold that is required for outdoor visibility. Now, the 120 Hz rate is also adaptive, but it only switches between 30 and 120, and it doesn't go down all the way to 1 Hz like you can get in certain displays. So that also is different. It's not an LTPO AMOLED display. That would be really expensive for this device. So you do have a variable refresh rate, but it only jumps from certain refresh rates and not all the way through the range. Now let's talk about the glyph lights. You have 26 addressable lights at the back. If you want to turn them off, you can do that, and you still have some of the previous functions. So for example, if I change the volume, you can see that it shows a display on the back, and if you're ordering food from Zomato or calling an Uber, you will get that sort of countdown in there. You can also set a countdown by starting a stopwatch, and that will also show up here. You also have something called a glyph composer that allows you to compose the lights with some music in your own fashion, which can be then used for ringtones or alerts. You also have a bunch of new animations for the lights along with ringtones, which sound like this. Honestly, the Glyph excitement died for me after the launch of the Nothing Phone 1, and with the Nothing Phone 2, while they did improve on the Glyph lights a little bit, I feel that it's still something that some people will use and most people will not. But if you're somebody who likes the Glyph lights, you have that functionality. Or if you're somebody like me who doesn't really like the Glyph lights long term, you can turn the Glyph lights off, which I will most likely be doing. Now, running everything on this device is a MediaTek Dimensity 7200 Pro, a chip that is specifically binned or pulled out of the bin and named such, and is being pushed to this particular device. And for this, you will not find this particular chip anywhere else. What's also good is that performance is pretty impressive out of this chip. It is a 4 nanometer chip. It's also extremely efficient, so you get really good battery life. Now, we've been testing this device for a while and we didn't face any lag or stutter despite it being on a pre-release build. I feel that they've done a good job picking the right kind of chipset for this particular device. Granted, it's not going to be a performance workhorse, but it's going to give you a lot of power and a big bang for your buck, especially on the efficiency side of things. So the phone will have 3 variants, 2 with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and you can pick between 128 or 256 gigabyte of storage. And then you will also have a 12 gigabyte RAM variant, which will also have 256 gigabyte of storage. And then you also have 8 gigabyte of RAM booster, which will allow you to get some better sort of RAM on this device. The operating system on this is going to be Nothing's Phone 2.5, which will also start pushing out to other devices, but they have made certain improvements, added more widgets, added more icons, and improved the overall interface, which I think already looked pretty nice, and it was different and has made the experience of using this phone, especially with the way that it looks in this monochrome finish, I think it goes really well with the design of the phone on the outside and with the design of the elements on the inside. It makes it a pretty complete package. And again, I'm stressing this out many times that in this price bracket, this is a pretty good device which also focuses on both software as well as hardware as well as design. So those are 3 things, not both. And the Nothing Phone 2.5 is running on Android 14, and you are getting a promise of many years of updates. So 3 years of Android updates and 4 years of security updates as well will be available on this device, which also makes it a pretty good proposition for somebody who wants to buy this phone and keep it for a few years. Let's talk about the cameras. We have a main 50 megapixel camera. It's got an f1.88 aperture, and it's also got a 1/1.56 inch sensor size, which is pretty impressive. You also have OIS and EIS, along with an ultra-wide sensor, which is also 50 megapixels. I'm glad they didn't put any random sensors in there like 2 megapixel macro or depth sensor, all of that. It doesn't need any of those. It also has a pretty robust built-in portrait mode, and you can see some of the samples on the screen right now. The images from it look pretty good. It has a good amount of dynamic range as well, and color and saturation look good in our initial tests. Also, low light images turn out really well in some of the samples that we took. Video is capped at 4K at 30 FPS, which is not something that we are really happy with. We would have liked to see 4K 60 FPS, but they have refused to do that. So if you want to get 60 FPS, you can go down to 1080p. And even in video, in low light, it manages to sort of illuminate the area quite well. And here is what the video looks like.
Not sure what you wanted, but I'm what you need. I know my high just started, but I hit a peak, yeah.
On the front is a 32 megapixel camera that is capped at 1080p, and it can only capture 1080p 60. You can't even change the resolution on this camera. So if you don't want 1080p for some reason, if you want a lower resolution, you can't get that. But this also adds to the things of the Nothing Phone 2 that are a little bit of an annoyance. Now you'll also have a 5000 milliamp hour battery in there, and it does support Nothing's 45 watt charger. So if you have that already, or if you want it, you can pick it up separately. A charger is not included in the box, and in this price bracket, that is a strict no-no. I think that they would want to bundle it at least, but they haven't done that as well. So if you have an existing charger that does push out up to 45 watts, it'll work with this device no problem. But you can also pick up Nothing's charger that will do that. Now, as far as the microphone is concerned, here is a sample of what the microphone of the Nothing Phone 2a sounds like. Here is what the microphone of the Nothing Phone 2a sounds like. And the speakers are also fairly loud and they sound really clear. And here is what the speakers sound like. Primarily towards OnePlus users, but it will work with other Android devices as well. Now, you do have an app which is dedicated to this, which allows you to control all the functionality of the watch, and that app presently is not available on iOS. That might change in the future, but for now it works well with Android, and we'll talk about all of that. The phone does support Wildvine L1, so if you're going to be streaming, that is not going to be a problem on this phone. And with this device, you get Bluetooth 5.3 along with Wi-Fi 6 and not Wi-Fi 7, which has become more of a standard with some companies nowadays. So those few things inside this device are sort of pulling it back, but a lot is pushing this phone forward. And overall, I think that this is a really smart decision from the company, whether this device or future devices that do launch in this rather more affordable price bracket are going to make this phone really important for the Indian market. The fact that it is completely manufactured in India and the fact that they're launching CMF buds that they will be bundling with this. So you can pick those up as well if you're picking up this phone. And we'll have them linked on the top right or in the description below because we've already covered them and reviewed them. So you can go check that video out as well. What are your thoughts on the Nothing Phone 2a? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next one.